Our guest on the Mental Toughness podcast today is a basketball coach who spent decades at the highest level. He's three-time NBA champion as an assistant coach, former head coach of the Chicago Bulls and the University of Utah. He was USA Basketball Coach of the Year in 2023. He's now a key part of the Indiana Pacers staff under Coach Rick Carlisle, bringing his trademark toughness, passion, and defensive mindset to the team. Look forward to this inside look at coaching, his journey, faith, leadership, and the grind of the game. With our guest today, excited about this one, Coach Jim Boylen. Coach, man, thanks for
Hey,
joining us, bud.
hey, Dr. Bell. Thank you. Thanks for having me on and taking the time, and it's great to see you.
I know you don't get a lot of time, but how is the golf game, Coach?
I played yesterday. I played 9 holes. My girlfriend Stephanie was in town, and we played 9 holes, and I shot 40 from the back at Meridian. It's pretty good for me.
Oh,
So,
nice, man.
um,
Any
you know,
circles on that card?
two, two
Oh, there we
circles.
go.
Yeah, two circles. So that means I had a couple bogeys too, but no,
Sure.
it's fun. Yeah, I
That's
birdied
awesome.
10 and 17. Yeah, so it's good.
Love it, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Coach, we're always talking about hinge moments and mental toughness. I want to talk about your journey. Um, but even before we started recording here, like talk to us about one of those early hinge moments that happened to you in third or fourth grade and pick it up from there.
Yeah, so I was raised Catholic. I had two older brothers. We went to Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was a good school. I loved it. But when my parents divorced, and when people got divorced in the 70s, Doc, it was not a common thing. You were almost alienated. You were alienated, from the community because it just wasn't accepted at that time. So um, I felt that in that my parents separated in third grade, divorced in fourth. I felt that separation, and it was kind of a strange feeling, because I loved my school and I had good buddies and obviously played all the sports with my buddies. But I would come to school on a Monday morning and they'd say, "Hey man, how Johnny's party was awesome. It was so much fun. We had such a good time at his party." And I didn't know anything about it. I wasn't
Mm,
invited. And Johnny had been my best friend. You know what I mean?
right.
So it was like this moment of like, wow, what's going on here? Why am I treated differently? Why am I being separated here from the group without anybody talking to me about it? So I got this feeling in my spirit like this isn't the place for me. So time went on, and in seventh grade, the school got wind that I was thinking about going to the public school in my hometown. My brothers had gone K through 8 at the Catholic school and then went to the public school because it was in our neighborhood. But I was thinking about going for my eighth grade year. So they got wind of it. And all of a sudden they call me in the principal's office, and it's the principal, it's the head of the boys side of the school, the head of the basketball coach, the AD, and the football coach. And those were kind of my two main sports. And so they sat me down and said, "Hey, James, we hear that you're thinking about going to East Grand Rapids for eighth grade." I was like, "Well, yeah, I kind of am." They're like, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, I don't really feel good about this place anymore." I said, "I things happen that I'm not a part of that I used to be, and it doesn't feel like a safe place for me." And for a seventh grader to kind of have those feelings, this was kind of a God anointed thing.
Right.
I wasn't that intellectual of a guy. I didn't understand everything, but it felt wrong. And so they said, "Well, listen, we're going to offer you a scholarship to the Catholic high school. We're going to get your lunch every day. We're going to get you a ride to school. We're going to buy your school clothes. We're going to take care of you." And I was like, "Well, okay, but why aren't my parents here?" And they really didn't have an answer for me. And so it was a strange conversation. So I went home and I got home and I sat down with my mom and I said, "Mom, something strange happened today." And I explained to her what happened and who was in the room and what it was about. And she said, "Well, you got an option. You can stay in the Catholic school system, or you can leave next year, go to eighth grade at East Grand Rapids, and then go to the public school." She goes, what do you want to do? It's your decision. Decision you make, you're going to have to stand by and stand with and make work. And I said, Mom, I want to go to the public school and I want to kick the crap out of the Catholic school for four
Right.
years. So that's what happened, and that's what we did. And but that my mom giving me that decision, Doc, was a real impact on my life because I've had to make a bunch of tough ones since then, right? What job to take, what school to go to,
Hmm.
what kid to recruit, what how to talk to somebody, just all these moments that you go through in coaching to have to no fear to kind of make a decision and stand by it were huge moments. And I just thank God for that. I thank God for that moment. I thank God for that discernment at that time. Um, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And it doesn't mean I made all right decisions in my life because I haven't, but I made a
Right.
bunch of them by the grace of God. I made a bunch of them that really helped me. And, as we talk today, I think the thing I'm most thankful for is I've been a part of a lot of winning. I've been around a lot of winning. And to me, that started in those moments when you make those decisions on what path you're going to take, and then you get on the right path and you're around the right people, and God has an anointing on your life. I always felt like He had a hand on my shoulder most of my life. There was times when I got away from Him, and then I wasn't gifted with much, but I was gifted with a competitive spirit,
Hmm.
and I love to work. So
Yeah.
in our business, those two things are powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, coach. And it makes sense. I mean, the just having the ownership of that, because I see that a lot. I mean, a lot of people just don't want the shot, right? And
Nope.
just don't want the ownership of it. I mean, you
Nope.
you go to Maine and play
Yeah.
basketball. I mean, you're runner up player of the year to Reggie Lewis,
Yeah.
obviously incredible player. Um, and then you go to Michigan State. You're under Judd Heathcote at that time, and then you're assistant alongside Coach Izzo. Talk to us about like one of the earliest memories when you're there at that time.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting time. I was the first graduate assistant at Michigan State. Tom Izzo had been pushing for one. When I was in high school, I wasn't quite good enough to go to Michigan State. They didn't offer me a scholarship, but Judd had said to me, if you go to Maine, because Judd had recruited me, I visited there, but he said, you need to go to Maine and play at Maine. He says you can play there right away and you can have success. You'll get better there. And he really liked the coach there at that time, Skip Chappelle. And he said, so he counseled me on it. And he said, you need to go there. And he said, if you go there, we'll play you guys. And I was like, you will? He goes, yeah, we'll play you guys. So my junior year, we played at Michigan State against Skiles' senior year team, a
Oh,
really good
okay.
team. Vernon Carr, Daryl Johnson. I had played against Vernon Carr and Daryl Johnson, those guys in high school all the time. And so they beat us at Michigan State. And then my senior year, they came to Maine and we beat them. And it was 1986, and it was the first year of the college three. We made
Nice.
13 threes and beat them in the Bangor Auditorium in front of 12,000. It was an
Was
unbelievable
was
game.
Scott Stiles still on that team?
He was gone. So it was
Okay.
Daryl Johnson, Vernon Carr, um, Carlton Valentine, Denzel Valentine's dad, who was a really good player. So, anyways, we beat them, and then I played well. I played well in both games, but I played really well my senior year. And so I had a relationship with those guys. So when I was looking to be a graduate assistant, they thought it was a good idea. And the cool thing for me was when I went there to be a GA, that most of the guys were back on that same team and we beat them the year before. So they really couldn't give me a hard time,
Right.
about being a GA. But yeah, I roomed with Izzo. Brian Gregory was with us for a while, who's the GM of the Phoenix Suns right now. Tommy Crean was with us for a while, lived with us, was the former head coach of Indiana and Georgia and Marquette. So we had a really good group of guys that kind of moved through there, and we were all learning to coach and teach and work, and it was just a tremendous experience. So I went 1,250 miles away for college, but I went 55 miles away for grad school and to start my coaching career. I was a good player. I wanted to keep playing, but when I had the opportunity to go start my coaching career or go play, um, I had to make good in Belgium. I had a I had a thing in Ireland where I could go play.
Mm,
They weren't great opportunities, but they were opportunities.
sure.
And so I made the decision that I thought was best for my long-term future, and it was to go to Michigan State, go to grad school, and be a GA for Judd Heathcote. And it was just an awesome decision. I was there 5 years, and during those 5 years, Judd let me coach in the NBA Summer League for a summer. And I just grew as a coach, and I was back in Michigan, which was really cool for me. And, there's nothing like being on a Big Ten college campus on a football Saturday,
Right.
being part of all that, the recruiting. And Tom Izzo, I had some key guys you talk about hinge moments, key guys in my life that put their arm around me and helped me. Tom Izzo was my college coach, first of all, was just terrific with me. Um, and then Skip Chappelle, and then my Judd Heathcote, cared for me and looked out for me and taught me. And then Tom Izzo, we just became best friends and learned from each other. We're 10 years apart, but we're like brothers.
Hmm.
And so, and then when I went to the Rockets, Rudy T did that for me too. He kind of put his arm around me and developed me as a young coach. So a lot of guys poured into me in my career, especially that first 10, 12 years where you're really learning and growing on how to teach the game, how to think the game, how to scout, how to prepare, how to work your day as an assistant and get the most out of it. I learned from the
Right.
best. And I've worked for, I think, 7 or 8 people in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Popovich, Tom Janovich, Izzo, Jerry Reinsdorf, Larry Bird's in the Hall of Fame. He was our GM when I was in Indiana the first time. So I've just been blessed with that, to have guys around that, first of all, were upstanding people and guys that cared about the right things and taught me the right things and then looked out for me.
Hmm. No, I love that, coach. I mean, so one of the power of discernment and then decisions. So I mean, you're there at Michigan State, and then you have to make the decision to join the Houston Rockets. Rudy Tomjanovich there,
Yeah.
and then I mean, you have success, back-to-back NBA championships. What was the biggest lesson for you from going from an assistant in college then to the NBA?
Yeah. So mine was an interesting deal. And I'd like to make this point on the podcast is a lot of my opportunities in my life came because somebody didn't want to do something. Okay. Somebody that was maybe supposed to do the job they had, but they didn't do it for whatever reason. And it fell into my lap as a guy that was down the down the roster.
Like
So
video,
for
like video?
exactly. So at
Yep.
Michigan State, Judd Heathcote bought like at that time it was called an Avid, um, and it was a machine that spun the tapes. We had tapes back then, believe it or not, spun the tapes, and it would line the tape up with a time code, and then that would record that time code, that 17 seconds of time code, which was usually a half court action or even a transition action. And the computer would line all these up, and it would spin the tape to this part, copy it onto another tape, and then spin it here, and you'd build your edits using the computer with this big machine. It took up like half the room. Well, my first year at Michigan State, Judd bought that for the staff for us to use for our scouting. He was the first guy in college basketball to have it. So I'm sitting there and it comes in, they set it up, the people set it up, and then Izzo and then the other assistants, they didn't want to run it. They were recruiting, they didn't really have time. So it sat there for a month. And finally, I just said, you guys want me to run this thing? Because I was just a GA. I was going to school too. And I go, I'll give this thing a shot because it was almost like everybody was scared of the technology, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and so I jumped on it. And because we were the first team in college to have it, I became an expert right away. Not because I was an expert, but because nobody else knew how to do it.
Right.
And so now the company's flying me all over country to do demos. I figured out some things that it did that they didn't even know it did. The right click meant rewind. They didn't even know the right click on the mouse was rewind. you know. So I got an opportunity to do something because nobody else wanted to do it, and I became an expert at it. And that happened to me time and time in my career. And you talk to young coaches about make yourself so valuable they can't get rid of you. Well, Michigan State had to keep me whether I was good or not because nobody else could run the video computer.
Yeah.
But I competed at it like everything else. I wanted to be good at it. And that ultimately led me to go to the Rockets because they bought the same machine 5 years later.
Hmm.
And they asked the company, who's the best guy in the country on this? They said, Jim Boylen at Michigan State. And that's one of the reasons I got hired there. The other reason I think is important to talk about for people is I was scouting at Michigan State Furman between my fourth and fifth year, or excuse me, the fall of my fifth year there. And I had coached in the NBA Summer League the summer before for 30 days. I paid my own way to go to Loyola Marymount, coach my own team, free agent division. At night, I was an assistant for the Pistons, Indiana, Washington combined team. Brendan Malone, famous NBA coach, Mike Malone's father, was the head coach. He goes, "You're coaching your team in the morning. Why don't you come help me coach my team at night?" So I sat on the NBA bench in Summer
Love
League.
it.
So that fall, I'm scouting at Michigan State. Michigan State's going to play in the Furman Christmas tournament, and Furman's playing Dayton. So I drive from East Lansing down to Dayton, and I'm scouting the game. I'm sitting next to a guy from the Houston Rockets, and his name's John Killalay. And it's a famous name in our game because he was a Celtic and all that. But he was a main guy. So I'm sitting there and I'm working, and he's looking at me. He's sitting back with his arms folded, watching the game, and I'm taking all these notes and I'm ripping stuff up, and everything's we didn't have laptops back then. We weren't doing stuff on
Right.
laptops, scouting. And so he goes, "Hey, what are you writing all that down for? Who are you? What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I got to get this in tomorrow. We got to walk through tomorrow. I got to be ready to go. I got to drive back tonight." So he goes and gets a coffee at halftime, comes back, and I'm still working. And the game ends, and I'm still working. And he goes, "I don't know why you're taking all those notes. That guy's the best player. They're running this." He had all the answers, right? And he was
Yep.
kind of pushing me below the water a little bit to see how I'd react, right? And so the game ends, and he goes, "Hey, man, where are you from?" I go, "Well, I'm from Michigan State." He goes, "No, where are you from?" I go, "I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan." He goes, "Well, where'd you go to college?" I go, "I went to University of Maine." He goes, "Who'd you play for?" I go, "Skip Chappelle." He goes, "Do you like Skip Chappelle?" I go, "Yeah, I loved him, man. He's like my father, man. He taught me how to play." So he goes, "All right." He goes, "Well, how long are you going to do this college stuff?" I go, "I don't know. I love my job. I love what I'm doing." He asked me all these questions. And finally, he says, "Well, where did Skip Chappelle go to high school?" I said, "He went to Old Town High." So Old Town High is in Old Town, Maine. You ever
Okay.
seen those Old Town canoes?
Right.
That's where they make them up in Old Town, Maine.
Oh,
There's a big
okay.
paper mill there. Okay, big paper mill, huge paper mill there. Used to be. I'm not sure if it's still there, but
Good smell, huh?
oh yeah, it's awful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You smell when the wind's blowing right, you get the paper mill, right?
Yep.
So he goes, where did Skip Chappelle go to high school? I said, Old Town High. He goes, "Who was Skip Chappelle's high school coach?" I said, I don't know who Skip Chappelle's high school coach was. He goes, "It was me.
Really?
If you
Yeah.
ever want to come to the NBA, here's my card. You call me." So that spring, I called him. So the anointed decision to go to Maine ends up in that moment to be a big part of me going to the NBA.
Absolutely,
And you
coach.
talk about decisions and discernment and all these things and having favor in your life. And that's where it started for me into the NBA. And I was the first video guy that was hired for a video guy in the league. At that time, we had one head coach, obviously one head coach. We had two assistants and me, and I did everything. I used to
Yep.
meet Scotty Brooks at 9:30 at night to rebound for him, and
Yeah.
because nobody else wanted to, right?
Yep.
And all those kind of things. And then I moved from there, and I moved to the bench, and I was able to get on the bench at a young age, and that was really helpful for my career. And then the rest of it kind of just happened, you know.
Absolutely. No,
So
I love that, coach. Absolutely love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
With that said, I mean, with the NBA Finals and the first run,
yeah,
um, down 3-2 in that series, and then my roommate in college, he was a huge Knicks fan, right? And I was kind
sure.
of secretly rooting for Houston Rockets,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah,
huge Knicks fan, and
yeah.
I kind of liked John Starks at the time just because of his toughness. But at the end of like Game 6, I mean, Olajuwon blocks Starks's attempt. And it seemed like, I mean, that kind of changed the series. I mean, you guys won the next two games and won it. What stands out to you about that series?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the format has changed, right? That was 2-3-2,
Hmm.
which is a totally different animal than the way it is now. Think about having your first two games at home. If you lose one of those, now you got to play three on the road.
Right.
So we won game one and we won game three. And game three was the Sam Cassell big balls thing, right? Going down half court. And so we were up 2-1 with two more games to play there. And then game five was the OJ Simpson,
Yeah.
so that was going on where the TVs in the arena went to the OJ Simpson, the car going down
Yeah.
the
That Bronco.
highway.
Right.
So and we lose games four, games five, and now it's flipped, and now we're down 3-2, or I'm sorry, we're down 3-2. So now we go home for two games. So we got to win game six. And then we end up winning game six with what you said. And then we won game seven, and the rest is history. But Rudy T was the most unbelievable coach in a lot of ways, but he won so many elimination games. I can't remember the number now. I want to say 14,
Okay.
Doc. 14 times his team could have been eliminated and they won that game. So that might have been 3-1, it might have been 3-2, it might have been 3-3,
Right.
whatever. And he had such a calmness, but also a belief in the system. And he would talk about winning the next possession. It's all you got to worry about. The last possession is over. It means nothing. We can't get it back. Focus your energy on winning the next possession. Just go to the next possession, the next assignment. And it was really powerful for that group of guys. Now, we had some tough dudes too now. I mean,
Hmm.
Hakeem Olajuwon, maybe the toughest guy ever. Um, and what an athlete at that size. I think he's one of the few guys that's had a quadruple double, and I think he's had it a couple different ways. I think I don't want to give the wrong information, but he had, I think, 10 steals one time, that
Okay.
that that kind of deal, you
Right.
know. And then we had tough guys, Mario Elie, and we had Clyde Drexler. Robert Ory was still a real close friend, but he was just a winning player.
Yep.
A guy that made everybody better. He was the best. You talk about having a skill, okay? Think about Robert Ory. This is more of a basketball thing, but I think it's really important.
No, I love it.
He had the ability to pass the ball, and he could throw it above his head, and he could move it and throw it. He was 6'10", long, and he could pop that ball to centers. Dream wanted that ball popped to his strong hand, and he wanted it thrown so hard that it got him into his rhythm. He would catch it,
Mm.
and it would absorb it, and it would take him into his shoulder fake and his rhythm. Nobody really understood that, right? And so Robert Ory was the best at that. So think about who Robert Ory played with.
Right.
Dream, Shaq, Spurs. He won championships with all those guys because he was the best big to big post passer in the history of the game. Think about that. You would never, now he could shoot and he could block shots, he could do a lot of things, but his skill for making people better was that two-handed above the head pass where he would on time, on target, and make people better. And I just love that about the game. And then,
Yeah.
we had Mario Elie, who was like maybe the toughest guys I've been around, Vernon Maxwell. Um, Kenny Smith was a terrific shooter. Scotty Brooks had great role acceptance, was always ready to finish games. And, we had Otis Thorpe in the first year. We made a huge trade. We were floundering mid-season in 95. In January of 95, we were teetering a little bit. And then we made the trade for Drexler. And I'd like to talk about that if we could. Could we just talk about the trade for
Let's do
Drexler?
it,
Okay,
coach.
so this is interesting too. So
Yeah.
Rudy T comes to me, and we win it in 94. He comes to me in September of 94 and says, "Hey, I want you to start watching Clyde Drexler." I was like, he goes, "Don't ask me any questions about it. Just do what I tell you." I said,
Okay.
"Okay, yes, sir. I'll do that." He goes, "I want you to order the newspaper from Portland, and I want you to get it delivered to you every week, and I want you to cut out anything on him and put it in a notebook." I said, "All right." You got it. So I ordered the paper from Portland. It got delivered like 3 days later, than the date it was, but it would come. And I'd get a newspaper almost every other day from there on out. And I would go through the sports section and I would anything that was on Clyde, I would put in a notebook. So this was from September on. So he'd come to me in October and he'd say, "Hey, you watched any preseason games on Clyde?" I said, "No, I haven't." He goes, "I want you watching film on Clyde too." So part of my job was to watch a game or two on him every week. So I did that October, November. He came to me in December and said, "Hey, how's Clyde doing?" I said, "Well, he hurt a hamstring. He sat out a couple games." I said, "But Coach, what he can really do is he can pass. And if he gets to his right hand, it is over." I mean, and so he said, "Can he rebound?" I said, "Yeah, Coach, he two-hand rebounds and then he's on the break." I said,
Hmm.
It's powerful." He goes, "All right, good. All right." January comes, he kind of hits me again. "Hey, what do you think about Clyde? Would you?" And in January he goes, "Would you take Clyde? Would you trade for Clyde?" He says to me. I'm 20, I don't know, 6, whatever, 27. I said, I said, Coach, I don't know if he fits the way we play. Um, but I said he's big and athletic. I said, he's fast with the ball. He'll help our running game. I didn't have the guts to say yes or no. I was just giving him kind of some goods and some bads. And Clyde was a monster, man. I mean,
Right.
big, strong, fast, tough, smart, and physical, and just wore people down. And he could post, he could play facing, and like I said, he got to that right hand, it was over. So the trade deadline comes, and Rudy goes, "Well, um, what do you think, man? We got to make a decision this week." I'm like, "Oh," and he tells me who it's
Comes
for.
comes back to you again.
Yeah, it comes back to me again.
Yeah.
It says who it's for. So I've been studying this guy the whole year,
Yep.
and it was a great project. I learned a ton and all that, and I said, I hemmed and hawed again, and at the end, I said, I don't know, Coach. I don't know if I would do it. I just don't know. Man, that's a hard one, because I loved Otis Thorpe and all that, and but we had to give the team we had a chance to fail, and it was failing, right? So it had gone this long, and Coach says, "Well, we're going to trade for Clyde, and he's going to help us win. And Dream has a championship. He's going to have a lot of pressure on him to win one." And if you
Yeah.
remember those playoff series, Clyde was a monster. I mean,
Right.
just dominated. And our rebounding went up. We thought our rebounding would go down, and our rebounding went up with Clyde. And then the rebounder, him, had the ball in his hands for transition.
Early
So it was
break.
it
Yeah.
was it was a powerful trade, and Rudy T kind of had it in his sights for a while. I collected information for him and then, suggested on who he was and what he did. But that's a great story for a young guy, right? And
Absolutely.
and it was also how Rudy T thought. He was always kind of a step ahead of everything. And I don't know to this day if management and ownership had talked about the trade in September or it was just him, right? I never really
Sure.
asked him that. I don't know that. But I don't like to give up too much about the league. There's a lot of things that happens behind the curtain, but that's a good story. And
Absolutely.
because Clyde became a champion, he
Plus, they played together at Houston.
played together at Houston, lost, a
Right.
heartbreaker in Houston. So for Clyde to get a ring in that situation, but that's kind of how that whole thing started. So again, I go back to working for Hall of Fame guys, learning from people, and all these little assignments that you get along the way make you better
Hmm.
and help you grow as a coach and a person. And I'm so thankful for that.
No, I love that, Coach. Great story, man. Thank you for that. I
Yeah.
mean, during that time, I mean, I liked Sam Cassell, like Bobby Sura at Florida State. So I mean, I liked Sam Cassell on
Oh
that
yeah,
team.
Bobby Sura was tough, man. We playing against him. He became a pick and roll guy. He was a really good player. Sam Cassell is one of the best players ever, and he could play off the bounce. He could stop and make tough twos. He became a 3-point shooter. He was a much better defender. He had great hands, instincts, but he had leadership ability. He would talk to guys. And see, playing around these stars, playing with, Dream would get on you if you didn't pass him the ball. And he'd be hollering for the ball, right? And he wanted the ball. He should have the ball. But if you're not a tough guy, once in a while you got to say, Dream, Dream, I got you, man. I'll get you. Don't, you got to stand up to Dream. Otherwise, you're going to be a mental basket case. And Sam was tough enough and strong enough and mentally to kind of handle him and Clyde and these guys and just let them know, I got you next time. I missed you that time. I got you next time. And he was just a terrific player. And he's turned into just a terrific coach. He'll be a head coach in our league soon. He'll get a good
Hmm.
opportunity. Yeah.
Coach, you leave from there. I mean, you're under, Coach Eric Musselman at Golden State. Let me ask you a quick question on that. Like, what was the biggest thing you learned from Muss?
Well, Muss was the best off the board guy I've ever seen in a game. He would not script his ATOs. He
Really?
would not, he would see what's going on in the game, see where the matchups were. He's the best to this day at taking a timeout and turning it into something for somebody on his roster that's in the game and having it be really good. And he never repeated an ATO, very seldom for anybody. He would draw stuff up, and that was not a strength of mine, especially at that time. To have that, he would see the matchups, he would see who's playing well, he would have a feeling in his gut that I'm going to run this for this guy. And um, we had Cliff Robinson, we had Dunleavy, we had Richardson, we had Speedy Claxton that year, and Eric Musselman, elite at off the board ATO, end of game ATO. Some guys believe if they haven't ran it in practice, they're not running it in the game.
Right.
He didn't have any of that, and he did it, and he got it done, and it worked. And but it was always a one or two pass action. It was never a three pass action, and I think that had something to do with it. You know, and he would get a guy in space. And Eric Musselman knew his team better than anybody. His team, he knew it. He knew what each guy could do, where he was comfortable, where he would succeed from, where he needed the ball, how to get him the ball. And that's something I learned from Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was
No, I
really
love
cool.
that. Had him on the podcast because I was always fascinated by his preparation, his work ethic
Oh
towards
yeah,
things.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Coach Popovich quoted and said that you were two of the three best coaches of all times that he had a relationship with. How was your relationship with Coach Pop?
Yeah, Coach Pop well, I went there as the second assistant from Indiana, and that summer he lost Mike Budenholzer and Brett Brown, two guys that had been soldiers for him for a long time. So it was a new territory for him, for me, for everybody. But what I loved about Pop was he kept everything simple. He kept it simple with you, what he needed, what he wanted, how he wanted it done, and he kept it simple with the team. And there's so much beauty in that, simplicity and execution. I mean, Bobby Knight had it in his book 40 years ago. Not surprise and change, simplicity and execution. And Pop was terrific at that. Pop believed in the defensive end of the floor to win championships. That's how I was kind of raised in the business at Michigan State because defense and rebounding always travels. It travels
Hmm.
anywhere in the world. And so we were kindred spirits that way. Pop is a tough, very tough guy, but he's also got a soft spot in his heart for having guys have success. And the guys I've worked for, Izzo, Tomjanovich, Popovich, those Hall of Fame type guys, I believe Rick Carlisle's going to be in the Hall of Fame too.
Yep.
I believe that. And so they have this toughness, this edge, but also this soft spot, this moment when they have such a care factor and a love for helping guys get better and go through tough moments. And they know how to pick their spots on that, right? Hey, there's times when you got to be hard. There's times when you got to be tough, and then there's times when you got to put your arm around somebody and love them. And all those guys manage that really well. That's a gift. Um, yeah, you can't be, vinegar all the time. You know what I mean? You got to have
Hmm.
some sugar in there too. And those guys, along with Pop, kind of reinforced that for me. I saw that in him. Um, And it was an honor and a privilege to work for him. And we had a really good team that year. We were really good defensively, and the ball moved. The ball was moving, and a little bit like we play now with the Pacers, right?
Yeah,
Ball's moving, changing sides, guys are cutting, moving, sharing it. Um, and that's a fun way to play. You know,
absolutely.
the Spurs were, I always talk in the league, like, if you watch a team play, would you want to play with those guys? Like, I'd want to play with our guys. There's
Right.
some teams in our league I wouldn't want to play with those guys because of the way they
Yep.
play. Not that they're bad, good, whatever. They're just the way they play, and maybe it wins for them, but I don't want to play that way. I wouldn't want to
Hmm.
play that way growing up. We didn't play that way growing up. So, the Pacer team last year, last 2 years, we played the right way. I think we led the league in passes. I think at least last year we did. And then that Spurs team from 14 was the same way. You know, the
Yeah.
ball moved, and Tim Duncan's selflessness and his ability to age with grace and move to a role every year, maybe as he got older, move to a role that still helped the team win. I mean, he's the greatest example of how to age as a veteran and still make people better I've ever seen. I mean, it's just
Hmm.
amazing because he was so smart. And that team, that 14 team, Pop's 14 team. So Pop used to talk about effective field goal, how the guy affects the effective field goal in his character. Those are two Spurs traits, right? So he can affect the effective field goal at the defensive end or the offensive end, right? But they were elite at that. Matt Bonner, shooter,
Right. Yep.
affected at what? The offensive end, right? He could
Right.
spread space, stuff like that. But we had him, we had Diaw, Ginobili, Parker, Leonard, Duncan. We had the smartest group of guys. I mean, it was like intelligent guys, guys that understood the game and the world and how to talk and communicate and listen and take what we teach to the floor and play together and play for each other. And so that was a really special team to be a part of.
Hmm.
Um, and I think we won. I don't have it's been a while, but 20 games in a row, 22 games in a row or something. And I don't even know if we had a shoot around or a practice during that time because
Mm.
our guys just got it. And
Right.
Pop, one of Pop's greatest strength is knowing when to practice his team and when not to, when they need rest, when to know to save it for the games,
Yep.
that kind of thing. He's a master at that. He takes some hits for the resting guys, but he really had a feel for how to keep his team fresh. And his big thing was we want to be the freshest at the end of the year. We
Right.
want to be the healthiest when it really matters. We're going to be in the playoffs, okay? Whether we finish first, second, or third, or fourth, whatever, in the West, we can still win this thing. We just got to be the healthiest.
Yeah.
And that was powerful,
No, I love
really,
that, coach.
really, really powerful. So,
Um, I heard one time when Jeff Van Gundy spoke, and he said that show me a smart team that underachieves, and that's what
yeah,
resonated with me hearing you talk
yeah,
about
oh yeah,
the Spurs at that time.
yeah,
Coach, I know faith is a huge part of your life, and I want to talk
yeah,
about that. But I'm always,
yeah,
when things are great, I think it's very easy to say God is good. It's when,
yeah, yeah,
faith isn't really faith until it's all you've got. You you go from there to the Bulls, and you were a head coach then at University of Utah, but then you become the head coach at the Bulls, and it was during
yeah,
that time as well that your brother, passed away.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what was it about like the faith, man, that stood out to you, especially during those difficult times?
Yeah, so you feel like you get your dream job, right? Chicago Bulls, you're a Midwestern guy. You coached in the 90s in the NBA when Jordan and you know they were kind of doing their thing and we got to remember now we beat the Bulls 6 straight times during that time with Akeem and
Okay.
those guys, okay? We never played them in the finals. It never matched up. But we had beat them 6 straight times in a regular season. And we were a good matchup for them. I'm not saying we would have beat them. We can debate all that stuff, but we had a special guy in Dream, and they had a special guy in Michael. right? And so it never matched up. But what was your question again, Rob? I'm sorry.
Well,
The Bulls. Yeah. So
yep.
you become the head coach in the Bulls. I was an assistant there for 3 years, and then I become the head coach. And we had a young team, I think 21.5 years old, and I was learning. You're in a big market, and I loved every minute of it. It was very difficult. Um, I had good young guys. Chris Dunn was a tough, hard-playing guy. Wendell Carter, um, we had Larry Markkinen. We played competitive basketball. We really improved defensively. But I got a new GM and a new president, and they didn't want me there anymore. And that happens in our business. It was a tough pill. Now, because of that, I got to come home. My family was living in Indiana, and I was living in Chicago because my girls went to school here in Indiana. And we just loved Indianapolis from the time we were here before, okay, with
Hmm.
the Pacers, okay? So I was going back and forth, and then when I got fired, but in the same year, I got fired from the Bulls. My wife divorced me, and I lost my brother Freddie, who was like my guy, right? Like, my brothers, both my brothers were like big in my life and taught me. And because my dad was absentee and out of the house when I was a young kid, right? So my brother Freddie dies of cancer at 59. I get fired, and my wife divorces me. So, you talk about the Lord, you talk about 40 days in the desert, right? 40 years in the desert, those being refined by fire. So I was going through this refining moment. But you know what? The Bulls owed me for almost 3 years, and I had 4 years with my kids going to high school games, being a part of their life. And I had been so busy my whole life, and I was commuting right back and forth to Chicago. So I had this moment to take a deep breath, and God kind of gave me a break. And I was with my girls. We went to the Big Ten tournament. We went skiing. We went to Europe. And very few times in your life do you have time and means. When you're younger, you have no money,
Right.
but
Right.
you might have some time. When you get older, you have money and no time at all, right? So this was the one moment in my life that I had money and resources and time. And it was just, I was able to get through that first 4 or 5 months, kind of get my chest back out. And then I spent quality time with my family, my kids. I was able to grieve my brother, grieve my divorce, grieve getting fired, and move on. And I just thank God for that moment. He actually had me in the palm of his hand at that time, but your ego doesn't let you think that,
Right.
right? Your ego is not going to give you that, right? Man, you got to go prove you could coach. And all of a sudden, after the first year, USA Basketball calls me in September and says, "Hey, you want to come coach the qualifier?" I'm like, "Oh man, I'd love to coach the qualifier," because I was still getting paid by the Bulls and I was still with my kids, but now I got a little basketball. I get 12 weeks of basketball in uh, a year, right?
Yeah.
Because each window takes about 4 weeks
Okay.
by the time you build your team and all that. So I had, and it's 2 game windows. So you have six 2 game windows, three in one year and three in the next. So I did that for 2 years, and then the second year I was a consultant with the Pacers. Rick asked me to be a consultant, so that was really cool too. So God was giving me the basketball back, but I had gotten my life in order. I had gotten through my divorce. I had grieved some
Hmm.
things, and I had moved on. And I was really happy during that time. You
Yeah.
know,
No, I
I,
love
I,
that,
I was
coach.
I was really happy. And again, I talked earlier about God kind of having you on hand on your shoulder and guiding you on these things. I could have said no to USA Basketball because for whatever reason, but I didn't. I jumped at it. I told Sean Ford, I'll swim there. Tell me where to swim to,
Yeah.
because I was just ready for that next challenge.
Coach,
Um,
question for you. So,
but
I mean, with USA basketball and the qualifiers, I mean, you have a lot of different players. I mean, it seems like all of your experiences led up to even coaching that because, I mean, there's a lot
yeah.
of just, at least from my opinion, right? There's a lot of rotating players that will come in and
Oh
out
yeah,
during that
50.
time.
We had 57 guys or something. I had 6 or 7 different assistants, and yeah, you build the team. I was really blessed because Langston Galloway, John Jenkins, Eric Mika. I had some guys do multiple windows with me, so they knew what it was about and what we're doing. experience in those windows is really important. USA won last night in Managua. They beat Brazil in their third game of the America Cup, and they were down at halftime by 6, and they came back and really played well and played hard. So it's I talk about, being refined by fire. USA
Hmm.
basketball refines you by fire. I mean, you got 12 guys you've never coached. You got 5 days to get them ready to play games you have to win. Think
Right.
about it. You have to win. Because if when we lost, the game it was on the ticker on ESPN. When we won, it was never on there. Nothing was on there,
Sure.
right? So, you lose, you're a jerk. You win, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but that pressure, I love the pressure. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Pop would call me after the games. Pop, because Pop, did the Olympics, and he know if you haven't done it, you really don't know what you feel more pressure in this than anything in your life. Anything in your life, because you're supposed to win,
Right.
right? USA, come on, come on. What are you talking about? And so Pop would call me, he goes, nice win. How you doing? How good does that feel? He was almost giddy because he had that feeling,
Yeah.
And so Sean Ford, I can't thank him enough. Jim Tooley, the people at USA Basketball were so good to me. We were able to build something. I was able to do it all 6 windows. That's why I was, coach of the year, was just because I stuck with it, I think, and we had good players and I had great assistants. And I still talk to a lot of those people. So we were all watching the game last night. It was on last night at 9 o'clock. The game down in Managua was on 1891 or whatever, that
Sure. Yeah.
website that shows the games. So we were all texting back and forth during the game, and to have that family and be part of that family is really cool. I still stay in touch with my Houston Rocket guys, still stay in touch with my Utah guys. So that's really cool. You kind of have these families everywhere, Rob,
Yeah.
you got cities you've lived in and teams you've worked for. So um,
Coach, how about that? I mean, talk about the relationships that last way beyond when the championships sort of end, but talk about those relationships and how they impact you.
yeah. Well, Rudy T's been just a mentor for me the whole time everywhere I've gone. He visited me in Utah. He's when I was a college guy. He's obviously he did USA basketball. He won a gold medal, so he understood what that was all about. Um, and him and Pop were both huge in my ability to get that job with USA basketball. They both gave me great references. So that's part of the relationship, right? You go bust your ass for a head coach, bust your ass for a guy, tell them the truth, work hard, and then they help you later in your life maybe get something that you want or something that's good for you. So that's part of this thing too. Um, but the hardest thing is on your family, right? You're in Utah for 4 years, your kids are entrenched, and then you move.
Hmm.
You're in Indiana for 3 years, your kids are entrenched, and then you move.
Right.
But my daughters have had great success in sports and great success in school, by the grace of God. But I think they actually mature and they learn how to deal with people and go into a new environment and meet people and be confident. And there's so much to be learned from moving around. People will often say it's not ideal, and it's not what maybe it's not good for kids, but I disagree. My kids thrived in those situations and really grew. So, yeah,
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Coach. And with the Pacers run the past couple of seasons, I mean, one of the things that I've always loved about is those EPAs, those early pass aheads. I feel like,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, just that style of basketball is fun and it works. It seemed to me, and especially just watching, boy, I mean, it was a real team that you all have had.
We have such high character guys, and the way that uh, Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan have built our roster, they put a lot of emphasis on character, a lot like what we talked about with the Spurs. We have terrific guys. They're coachable, they care. And then, Rick just has a way of managing the team, figuring out what we should do well. We have a strong staff. Um, Lloyd Pierce has got great experience. Jenny Busick's great experience. They've been head coaches. I've been a head coach. I think that helps to know what that seat's all about. It makes a difference in supporting your head coach when you've been a head coach. You see around corners that maybe if you haven't been one, you don't see. It's really important. So,
Mm,
but Rick's very collaborative. He's very collaborative with the team. He's very respectful. But everything rises and falls in our league on the character of your guys. I haven't been around too many bad coaches in our league. I'll just tell you that. You get to this level, you can coach and you can talk to people and you can motivate guys, but it's really about the character of your guys. We have Pascal Siakam. There's not a higher character guy in the league.
right.
We have Aaron Neesmith. We have Drew Nemhard, one of the toughest guys I've ever coached. And I've coached, a bunch of tough guys over
I
the
wanted to
years.
ask about him, Coach.
Yeah, and so, we had Miles Turner, who was really good for us too. He's moved on, and we wish him well. But just TJ McConnell, come on, Doc. One of the toughest guys ever at that size to do what he does and get downhill, and he's a great leader. We have guys that own their mistakes. They move on from a mistake and they put the team first. When you own a mistake too much or you own it too hard, that's making it about you, right? You got to move on from those mistakes and you got to be the best version of yourself in the next possession. So we have guys that do that. Rick fosters that. Coach Pierce, Jenny, they foster that. Um, and it's a powerful group of guys. These things don't happen by accident.
Right.
We kept getting better every year. We get better as the season goes on. We got better defensively the last 2 years. We've gone from 30th to, I think, after December last year, we were ninth. So that's a big climb. And credit to our guys, credit to our staff, credit to Rick, credit to Coach Busick, building our defense. We've always been good offensively because the ball moves and we play the right way.
Yeah.
So it's been just a godsend for me to be part of it, to see it. And this year will present some new challenges, right? And which they always do. And we'll just take them head on. Yeah.
Coach, it's interesting because he's one of my favorite players just to watch because of the toughness. It's interesting to hear you say, I mean, he's one of the toughest players in terms of Nemhard that you've coached.
Yeah, he is. He embraces contact and collision, which to me makes you great right away, just that.
Hmm.
But he takes the challenge. It hurts him when somebody scores on him. It hurts him to a score. And that's what those great Mario Ellie was like that. Vernon Maxwell was like that. Um, I coached Joakim Noah for a year. Joakim Noah was like that, man. Somebody scored on him, it bothered him. And he's a tough guy. Um, Taj Gibson was like that. So you got that spirit of, I'm not giving this guy anything. He's getting nothing tonight is so powerful with Drew and on our team. And I personally, I was a little bit like that. Obviously not as good a player as these guys, but that it bothered me when somebody scored on me.
Yeah.
If my brother scored on me in the driveway, we were fighting after that bucket. We
Right.
couldn't finish the game. So and I love guys like that. And Drew has that. And then he's improved offensively. His shooting's improved. And he's just a winning player.
Mm. Coach, I appreciate this interview. One of the things that we've talked about before, and you've shared with me, is in terms of faith is the tithing. That's
Yeah.
very important to you, and
Yeah.
you've always maintained that. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So when I was in eighth grade, I gave my life to the Lord. I became born again. And people have a misconception about Christianity. I think sometimes, doesn't mean you can't be tough, doesn't mean you can't play hard, doesn't mean you can't um, be a be a tough driving guy, even though you're a Christian, right? And the Bible's one of the most violent books out there, right? So I was raised kind of that way, that you could be a man of faith, but also, have an edge to you and have a toughness to you. So my mom was a big part of that. But my mom, whenever I made money in grade school or mowed a lawn or whatever, she would say, "Are you going to tithe on that? You're 10%. 10%'s the Lord's money." And I I did that since I was 10 years old, since I made my first buck, I've tithed since that day 10% of my income to the Lord. And I don't say that to be boastful or bragging, but I think all the positive things I've been a part of, all these moments in my life when I've grown and learned, and I feel like the Lord's been right there with me. And I've fulfilled my obligation, my spiritual, biblical obligation that I think is demanded of us. And, the favor that God has shown me, and my healthy kids, and my just the wonderful life I've had. There's been ups and downs, right? There's been issues, there's been problems. I've made mistakes, but I'm just a big believer in what that does to you spiritually, to give that back. And my thought process on it's not my money anyways, right? He gave me the ability to make it, so it's really his.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a powerful thing in my life. I've tried to share that with people. Not everybody understands it, buys into it, but it's a commandment, in my opinion, and it's something that needs to be fulfilled. And I've been able to do that. And um, you know, just think about the championships, think about all the winning and all the great guys have been around and all the favor I've had. And I attribute that to that I've honored my commitment, and the Lord has really honored me.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that, Coach. Love that take, man. And belief. Coach,
Yeah.
with this interview, and I appreciate you sharing, especially your story and the toughness and the mental piece. What question should I be asking Coach that I'm not asking, that I've forgotten to ask?
Well, I have two beautiful daughters that are a big part of my life. Um, and so they're doing well, and they're working really hard, which I like. And I think the one thing that I think is really important for everybody, and not to get too preachy here, but you control the controllables in your life, your effort, your attitude, your energy, your punctuality. You control those things. And if you do that, if you tell the truth and you do that, um, you will have a successful career, successful life. Your body language, you control that, your effort, your attitude, things don't go to your way, how you going to react. And I think that's really important. I think that's a key to becoming the best version of yourself, um, in a really difficult world, right? It's a difficult world. Second thing I would say is that I think it's important is not having the comparative mindset. Do not compare yourself to somebody else. It's a dead end. It's defeating. Okay. People are going to have more than you, less than you. People are going to do better than you, not as good as you. You're going to have moments when you succeed and they succeed. Okay. Your goal is to be the best version of yourself in these moments by doing the right things, by controlling the controllables. And I think honesty is a big deal. People struggle with honesty. People struggle with, they get offended when you tell them the truth instead of accepting it. And, the teams and the places that I've been have been successful. They relish the open conversation, and nobody gets offended because it's about winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Mic drop, Coach. Thank you so much, man, for joining us, man. I really appreciate it, Coach.
appreciate you, Doc. See you soon. Thanks, man. Yeah.